Hi there, I've got a beautiful card to show you today for the video. There's a couple of ways that you can do this technique, so I'm going to do one, I'll explain the other as I go along, and you can decide which you like best. There's a whole host of products we're using in today's video. First up is the mini striplet called Butterflies in Flight, and if you notice you'll get the extra butterflies to go with that. Next is the Scribble flowers, the Laurel leaves from the Finishing Touches. I'm also going to be using the tag from the Canadian Border Corner and Tag set. And I'm creating a frame that uses part of the Montreal die set as well as the Vancouver die set, both from the Canadian collection. And the sentiment comes from the Amazing Sentiment, which is a clear stamp set by Creative Expressions. So, first thing I'm going to start with is the striplet, okay? So what I've done is I've gone ahead and I've cut one in white and I've put it onto another piece of white card using some spray adhesive so it's down really nice and tight. So the next thing I'm going to show you is we're going to cut the striplet again, but out of sky blue card. So I'm going to pop it down, and you only need the center piece for this. We'll run it through. Okay. So now the way that I've done it on this particular card is I've used the fall away pieces, inserting them back into my butterfly. So I'm just going to put a little bit of glue, and I'll just do the top one because I've prepared a little bit ahead. So I'm just going to pop these pieces down, put them into place inside of the original butterfly. So I have what looks like a blue butterfly. Now, the other way, I mentioned earlier you could do this also, is to cut the 4 butterflies that match up and use them from underneath the die and then spray it into place. You can do either one. I just love the way that piecing these back together looks, so I've chosen to do it this way. And we'll pop this one into place. There we go, a little bit of glue. And then just make sure they seat down right inside of there. Now, I've gone ahead and I've done one ahead of time that has all the butterflies into place there. It just takes you a few minutes, but I didn't want to waste time with that. So the next step is to use the Cosmic Shimmer Cosmic Lacquer. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this right on top of this blue butterfly. And just make sure you don't have any kind of air bubbles, so you might want to start it off the page and make sure you haven't shaken it or anything. Just fill that in. And don't worry about being too neat about it, as long as you get it nice and covered into there. That's all you need to do. There we go. Now I'm not going to do them all because I have one that I've prepared ahead of time. But what you need to do next is set that aside to dry, and there is a bubble there, so you would just need to drag that or pull that. I would drag it up off of there if you can. There we go. Because once it dries, you'll have all of them finished. Then you can take and glue another one over the top. So anything that you've gone outside of the lines there won't show at all. So don't worry about that. So that would just glue right over the top of that. So I'll set those aside, and I can bring it back in. Okay, so here I have one that's finished. Now if you'll notice, I've got a frame around that. That is simply using the outside edge on a piece of white card and a piece of black card and just cutting the frame outside the shape that you want. So this is the smaller inside black frame, and I've just centered it into there, cut it, and then the same with the white, and I've layered them up with a little bit of mounting foam. Really simple, and I know you've seen me do this a few times. Pop that back into place. So I'm going to go ahead and put this onto the card, and then we'll move forward from there. Just put a little bit of mounting foam, and I'm going to center that right about like that. Now, the next thing is the tag. Now, I did say I've created a frame, and if you'll notice, the inside dies on the Canadian section are exactly the same shape, but they're different sizes. So you can layer them up to create a beautiful frame, which I love to do. I think that's so pretty. Pop those back in there. And I've added a little bit of mounting foam to the back of that, all the way around. And it's quite a thin frame, so you have to cut them small, to be fair. And then just let me peel off the backing and we'll pop it into place and we can move forward there. Okay. Now I've left it empty right here, and I'll show you why. I'm going to use the tag once I get this seated where I want it. And make sure your mounting foam doesn't pop off the side there. We can do that. And I'm going to put that right about like that onto our piece, and then we can move that little guy back into place there. Okay, so created the Canadian tag, a little bit of mounting foam on the back, so I'm going to peel that off, and then I'm just going to pop this corner in here and this corner in here and center that right in the middle of that section there. There we go. So a really pretty little frame, and I've stamped my sentiment in black. I've done a little bit of inking around the edge with some Stormy Sky, and then I used the center die there to go around it and create a faux nesty that's just a little bit bigger than the actual size of the die. Pop that right in the center, and that ties in the black that I have in the card with the black and the blue. Okay, the next thing is the scribble flowers. And I've created the focal element using these. Now in the set there are 2 large flowers that have stems and then a whole bunch of littler ones. So I've made up some smaller flowers using 2 of them. And if you notice, they're kind of whimsical in shape. So they're not perfectly symmetrical. So when I layer them up, they're going to be offset a little bit, but they're going to be kind of, they're more of a fun flower, I think. So what I've done is designed this flower so you can use the head by itself just by taking and nipping it a little bit that way, creating just an empty flower there with no stem. And I'm going to do one more for this one. So I've got 2 larger flowers that I can use in my focal element. A little bit of glue between them, and then offset them. And you just have to decide, since it is whimsical, you have to decide what you like best as far as, you know, maybe move it around, decide which is most pleasing to you. I'm going to add a little pearl to the center of that with some Cosmic Shimmer Dry's clear glue. And I'm going to use an 8mm pearl in there. I always glue my pearls in place too because they do tend to get knocked off very easily. Even though they're self-adhesive, it's not a really strong bond. So I'm going to let that sit for a second. And I've gone ahead and cut a selection of these laurel leaves. And there's a left and a right facing on these. So let me bring them over here. And just because they were a little big for some of the smaller flowers, I've just nipped them about. You've got a nice little spot right here that you can just take off a section. And then you can tidy up that little bit of a stem with your scissors and have a whole nother little piece there. So they're really versatile like that. Okay, so let's bring our glue dots back in and we'll start assembling some of our flowers here. So I like to start with the bigger one, just as the focal element. So we're just going to put this a little teeny bit off center, about like that. That pearl is still moving around a bit. And then just kind of raise the top flower up and give it a little bit of forming. I think that's pretty. Go ahead and pop some more of these around. I like offset. Sometimes when I'm making cards, I have to say, I will lay the flowers out and play with them a bit before I'm decided exactly how I want them to be. And I think glue dots are good for that because they are easily pulled back up if you want to, and they don't tend to tear your card, whereas if you go straight with glue, they're down. So you have to be sure that's where you want them, okay? So pop a couple more of the smaller ones up here. And I'll put one more down like that. In fact, I think I'll move this one over a tiny bit. And I'll put this one in. It's a little bit larger, so we're going to pop that right into there. See how easy that was with the glue dots? Okay, so, I'll tell you what, let's use glue for our laurel leaves, and we just tuck them underneath a little bit. Just get the stem underneath the center of that flower. And I think it won't show. It's really nice like that. Put one more coming up off the top. And you can do them any way you like as far as the arrangement goes. This is just a very, very quick positioning. Like I said, I would probably take a little bit more time. That looks pretty good. I've got a few extra I can use on another project there, but you can see just how beautiful that comes out looking. Like I said, you can always use the solid butterflies if you don't want to mess about with the little fall away pieces on that, but I just think it's so pretty to highlight the way those butterflies look. You do it in any color, I think this would be a gorgeous card. Well, I hope you've enjoyed today's video and you'll join us again soon. We have our YouTube channel through Creative Expressions, and there are just so many other videos you can watch.